was once 3 apprentices who had agreed to keep always together while traveling and always to work in the same town. At one time, however, their masters had no more work to give them, so that at last they were in rags and had nothing to live on. Then one of them said, "What shall we do? We cannot stay here any longer. We will travel once more, and if we do not find any work in the town we go to, we will arrange with the innkeeper there that we are to write and tell him where we are staying, so that we can always have news for each other. And then we will separate." And that seemed best to the others also. They went forth and met on the way a richly dressed man who asked who they were. "We are apprentices looking for work. Up to this time we have kept together, but if we cannot find anything to do, we are going to separate." "There's no need for that," said the man. "If you will do what I tell you to, you shall not want for gold or for work. Nay, you shall become great lords and drive in your own carriages." One of them said, "If our souls and salvation are not endangered, we will certainly do it." "They are not," replied the man. "I have no claim on you." One of others had, however, looked at his feet, and when he saw a horse foot and a man's foot, he did not want to have anything to do with him. The devil, however, said, "Be easy, I have no designs on you, but on another soul, which is half my own already, and will be all mine soon." As they were now secure, they consented, and the devil told them what he wanted. The first was to answer, "All 3 of us," to every question. The second was to say, "For money," and the third, "And quite right too." They were always to say this, one after the other, but they were not to say one more word. And if they disobeyed this order, all their money would disappear at once. But so long as they observed it, their pockets would always be full. As they began, he at once gave them as much as they could carry, and told them to go to such and such an inn. When they got to the town, they went to it, and the innkeeper came to meet them, and asked if they wished for anything to eat. The first replied, "All 3 of us." "Yes," said the host, "this is what I mean." The second said, "For money." "Of course," said the host. The third said, "And quite right too." "Certainly it is," said the host. Good meat and drink were now brought to them, and they were well waited on. After the dinner came the payment, and the innkeeper gave the bill to the one who said, "All 3 of us." The second said, "For the money," and the third said, "Quite right too." "Indeed it is right," said the host. "All 3 pay, and without money I can give nothing." They, however, paid still more than he had asked. The lodgers who were looking on said, "These people must be mad." "Yes, indeed they are," said the host. "They are not very wise." So they stayed some time in the inn and said nothing else but, "All 3 of us, for money, and quite right too." But they saw and knew all that was going on. It so happened that a great merchant came with a large sum of money and said, "Sir host, take care of my money for me. Here are 3 crazy apprentices who might steal it from me." The host did as he was asked. As he was carrying trunk into his room, he felt that it was heavy with gold. Thereupon he gave 3 apprentices a lodging below, but the merchant came upstairs into a separate apartment. When it was midnight, and the host thought that all were sleeping, he came with his wife, and they had an axe, and struck the rich merchant dead. And after they had murdered him, they went to bed again. When it was day, there was a great outcry. The merchant lay dead in bed, bathed in blood. All the guests ran at once, but the host said, "The 3 apprentices have done this." The lodgers confirmed it and said, "It can have been no one else." The innkeeper, however, had them called and said to them, "Have you killed the merchant?" "All 3 of us," said the first. "For money," said the second. And the third added, "And quite right too." "There now, you hear," said the host. They confessed it themselves. They were taken to prison, therefore, and were to be tried. When they saw that things were going so seriously, they were after all afraid. But the night the devil came and said, "Bear it just one day more, and do not play away your luck. Not one hair of your head shall be hurt." The next morning they were led to the bar, and the judge said, "Are you the murderers, all three of us? Why did you kill the merchant? For money. You wicked wretches, you have no horror of your sins? And quite right too. They have confessed, and are still stubborn," said the judge. "Lead them to death instantly." So they were taken out, and the host had to go with them into the circle. When they were taken hold of by the executioner's men, and were just going to be led up to the scaffold, where the headsman was standing with the naked sword, a coach drawn by 4 blood-red-chested horses came up suddenly, driving so fast that fire flashed from the stones, and someone made signs from the window with a white handkerchief. Then said the headsman, "It is a pardon coming." And "Pardon, pardon," was called from the carriage also. Then the devil stepped out as a very noble gentleman, beautifully dressed, and said, "You three are innocent, you may now speak. Make known what you have seen and heard." Then said the eldest, "We did not kill the merchant. The murderer is standing there in the circle." And he pointed to the innkeeper. "In proof of this, go to his cellar, where many others whom he killed are still hanging." Then the judge sent the executioner's men there, and they found it was as the apprentices said. And when they had informed the judge of this, he caused the innkeeper to be led up, and his head was cut off. Then said the devil to the three, "Now I have got the soul which I wanted to have, and you are free, and have money for the rest of your lives." The end. In ancient times, a giant was traveling on a great highway, when suddenly an unknown man sprang up before him and said, "Halt! Not one step further." "What?" cried the giant. "A creature whom I can crush between my fingers wants to block my way? Who are you that you dare to speak so boldly?" "I am Death," answered the other. "No one resists me, and you also must obey my commands." But the giant refused and began to struggle with Death. It was a long, violent battle. At last the giant got the upper hand and struck Death down with his fist, so that he dropped by a stone. The giant went his way, and Death lay there conquered, and so weak that he could not get up again. "What will be done now?" said he. "If I stay laying here in a corner, no one will die in the world, and it will get so full of people that they won't have room to stand beside each other." In the meantime, a young man came along the road, who was strong and healthy, singing a song and glancing around on every side. When he saw the half-fainting one, he went compassionately to him and raised him up, poured a strengthening draught out of a flask for him, and waited till he came around. "Do you know," said the stranger, "who I am, and who it is whom you have helped on his legs again?" "No," answered the youth, "I do not know you." "I am Death," said he. "I spare no one and can make no exception with you. But, that you may see that I am grateful, I promise you that I will not fall on you unexpectedly, but will send my messengers to you before I come and take you away." "Well," said the youth, "it is something gained that I shall know when you come, and at any rate be safe from you for so long." Then he went on his way, and was light-hearted, and enjoyed himself, and lived without thought. The youth and health did not last long. Soon came sickness and sorrows, which tormented him day by day, and took away his rest by night. "Die I shall not," said he to himself, "for Death will send his messengers before that. But I do wish these wretched days of sickness were over." As soon as he felt himself well again, he began once more to live merrily. Then one day, someone tapped him on his shoulder. He looked around, and Death stood behind him and said, "Follow me. The hour of your departure from the world has come." "What?" replied the man. "Will you break your word? Did you not promise me that you would send your messengers before coming yourself? I have seen none." "Silence," answered Death. "Have I not sent one messenger to you after another? Did not fever come and smite you and shake you and cast you down? Has dizziness not bewildered your head? Did your ears not sing? Did not toothache bite into your cheeks? Was it not dark before your eyes? And besides all that, has not my own brother Sleep reminded you every night of me? Did you not lie by night as if you were already dead?" The man could not make no answer. He yielded to his fate and went away with Death. The end. There was once upon a time a poor peasant called Crab who drove 2 oxen a load of wood to the town and sold it to a doctor for 2 takers. But the money was being counted out to him. It so happened that the doctor was sitting at table, and when the peasant saw how daintily he ate and drank, his heart desired what he saw, and he would willingly have been a doctor too. So he remained standing a while, and at length inquired if he too could not be a doctor. "Oh yes," said the doctor. "This is soon managed. What must I do?" asked the peasant. "In the first place, buy yourself an ABC book, of a kind which has a cook on the front piece. In the second, turn your cart and your 2 oxen into money, and get yourself some clothes and medicines. Thirdly, have a sign painted for yourself with the words, 'I'm Dr. Knowall,' and have that nailed up above your door." The peasant did everything that he had been told to do. When he had doctored people a while, but not long, a rich and great lord had some money stolen. Then he was told about Dr. Knowall, who lived in such and such a village, and must know what had become of the money. So the lord had the horses put in his carriage, drove out to the village, and asked Crab if he were the Dr. Knowall. Yes, he was, he said. Then he was to go with him and bring back the stolen money. "Oh yes, but Greth, my wife, must go too." The lord was willing, and let both of them have a seat in the carriage, and they all drove away together. When they came to the nobleman's castle, the table was spread, and Crab was told to sit down and eat. "Yes, but my wife Greth too," said he, and he seated himself with her at the table. And when the first servant came with a dish of delicate fare, the peasant nudged his wife and said, "Greth, that was the first," meaning that was the servant who brought the first dish. The servant, however, thought he intended by that to say, "This is the first thief." And as he actually was so, he was terrified and said to his comrade outside, "The doctor knows all. We shall fare ill. He said I was the first." The second did not want to go in at all, but was forced. So when he went in with the dish, the peasant nudged his wife and said, "Greth, that is the second." The servant was just as much alarmed, and he got out. The third did not fare better, for the peasant again said, "Greth, this is the third." The fourth had to carry in a dish that was covered, and the lord told the doctor that he was to show his skills. And guess what was beneath the cover? The doctor looked at the dish and had no idea what it was and cried, "Ah, poor Crab." When the lord heard that, he cried, "There! He knows it! He knows who has the money!" On this, the servant looked terribly uneasy, and made a sign to the doctor that they wished him to step outside for a moment. When therefore he went out, all 4 of them confessed to him that they had stolen the money, and said that they would willingly restore it and give him a heavy sum into the bargain, if he would not denounce them, for if he did, they would be hanged. They led him to the spot where the money was concealed. With this, the doctor was satisfied, and returned to the hall, sat down to the table and said, "My lord, Now I will search in my book where the gold is hidden. The fifth servant, however, crept into the stove to hear if the doctor knew still more. The doctor, however, sat still and opened his ABC book, turned the pages backwards and forwards, and looked for the cook. As he could not find it immediately, he said, "I know you're there, so you had better show yourself." Then the fellow in the stove thought that the doctor meant him, and full of terror sprang out crying, "That man knows everything." Then Dr. Knowall showed the count where the money was, but did not say who had stolen it, and received from both sides much money in reward, and became a renowned man. The end.